My jealous stepsister came to my wedding with a neighbor's child and lied, saying the child was mine to embarrass me. She was arrested for kidnapping and my dad cut ties with her. My stepsister, Amanda, 26 years old, showed up uninvited at my wedding last week with a random kid I'd never seen before. Amanda and I, 27 years old, have never gotten along, and we stopped talking to each other when we moved out for college. My mom married her dad when we were in middle school, and Amanda has been a problem ever since. My dad divorced my mom when I was very young and hasn't been in my life at all, but for Amanda, it was different. Her parents divorced just a couple of years before her dad met my mom. She was one of those kids who believed my mom was ruining her parents' relationship, even though it had ended long before my mom came into the picture. Amanda didn't like my mom and hated me, always being as mean as possible. Our parents tried to make us get along, but they eventually gave up when they saw that Amanda would never be nice to me. Growing up, she always annoyed me, and when I left for college, I was relieved not to live with her anymore. We would see each other during holidays or birthdays but avoided talking, which was fine with both of us. About a year ago, my mom called to ask if she could use some leftover money from my college fund and a bit from my wedding fund to help pay for Amanda's wedding. I didn't know Amanda was engaged or even dating anyone because we hadn't talked in a long time. I said no because I thought the money might be useful for me in the future. My mom didn't push the issue, she just said okay, and we never talked about it again. I forgot about it until recently. It turns out Amanda had to call off her wedding because her dad refused to pay for the expensive wedding she wanted. She expected our parents to cover everything, from the venue to the wedding dress. Her dad had some money set aside, but her demands were way over his budget. The choices she made were too costly, and the wedding would have eaten up his savings. When her dad said no, Amanda asked my mom for help, but her own mom had already said she couldn't contribute because she had no money. My mom had money set aside for my wedding but didn't want to use it without my permission. When I said no, she also refused to contribute. Amanda and her fiancé, along with his family, couldn't afford the wedding on their own, so they ended up calling it off. Another reason my stepdad and mom refused to pay for Amanda's wedding was that Amanda and her fiancé had been together for less than a year before getting engaged. My stepdad didn't believe the marriage would last, so he didn't want to spend a lot of money on a fancy wedding when he wasn't even sure about the groom. He turned out to be right because a few months after their engagement, Amanda's fiancé left her after a petty fight. Amanda was very upset with our parents for a long time because she believed that if they had paid for the wedding and she and her fiancé were married, he wouldn't have left her. She didn't stop talking to them since she still depended on them financially, but she made it clear she was very upset. A couple of months ago, I got engaged to my boyfriend of almost 6 years. When I told my parents, they offered to pay for the wedding, but my fiancé and I wanted a simple, small, and intimate ceremony without much fuss. We decided to save the money for the future instead. My mom transferred all the money from my wedding fund to me, along with what was left from my college fund. Even my stepdad sent me around $10,000. They told us we could use the money however we wanted, and they wouldn't mind if we chose to have a large wedding. But my fiancé and I were set on having a small one. I made a mistake a few weeks ago by posting on Facebook to thank everyone who helped with my wedding. In the post, I expressed my gratitude for my parents' support, both financial and emotional. I mentioned both my mom and my stepdad, considering them my parents since middle school. Though I don't see Amanda as my sister, I do see my stepdad as my dad. It was an emotional post, and many people commented on it, which is probably how Amanda saw it. Amanda presumably got mad when she realized that both our parents were helping me with my wedding, something they had refused to do for her. She didn't react immediately, so we didn't know how upset she was until the day of my wedding. Unfortunately, she showed up after the ceremony, just as we were about to serve lunch. She walked into the venue with a random kid, her neighbor's son, as I later found out, came right up to me and started screaming, accusing me of stealing her dream wedding. She screamed at me, saying she hoped I was happy now since I'd stolen not just her wedding but also her dad, who she believed now preferred me over her. My husband was standing next to me, and I was talking to a couple of my cousins when she started yelling. Soon everyone was looking at us. My parents stepped in and told her to leave before they called the cops. Before leaving, she decided to drop a bombshell. She looked at my husband and said she had been keeping a secret for my sake for a long time, but couldn't anymore. Then she pushed the child forward and claimed he was my son with my ex, whom I had given up for adoption years ago. My husband, my parents, and I knew it wasn't true, but the rest of the guests seemed shocked. My parents had to kick her out while my husband and I explained that Amanda was just jealous and making up lies to ruin my reputation. After calming the guests, we moved on to lunch and cranked up the music so people would forget about the incident. Once my husband and I got home, we sat down with my parents and his parents. My parents explained everything that had happened in the past so we'd understand why Amanda was so furious. I thought it was ridiculously childish of her to make such a big deal out of this, especially since my parents had valid reasons for not wanting to pay for her wedding. Firstly, her wedding was extremely expensive compared to mine. My husband and I had contributed to our own wedding and didn't expect our parents to cover all the expenses. Secondly, she hadn't known her ex-fiancé for very long, while my husband and I had been together for a long time. My parents knew our relationship was serious and felt that paying for our wedding wouldn't be a waste, so I don't think it's fair for her to compare her wedding with ours. My parents apologized, especially my stepdad, who was embarrassed by what Amanda had done. We didn't blame them because they weren't in control of the situation. After discussing it, everyone went home, and that was it. But the next day, my mother called to tell me that Amanda had taken the kid from her neighbor's house without permission and was now being charged with kidnapping. Amanda called my parents in the morning to inform them about her arrest and asked her dad for money to bail her out and to find a lawyer. I thought it was ridiculous that she would go to such lengths just to humiliate me at my wedding. It seemed excessive. While I felt a little sorry for her, I didn't think I owed her an apology. However, ever since her arrest, her friends have been rallying for her and accusing me of being the bad guy. They believe that my parents have always favored me and claim I've always been the golden child. I always felt our parents treated us equally and never favored one over the other. We both had equal opportunities, and it was up to us to make the most of them. The accusation of me being the golden child seems unfair. We went to the same school and I got a scholarship because I was a better student, which is why I had leftover money from my college fund. My parents had nothing to do with that. I've also been with my husband for a longer time than she was with her boyfriend, which is not something our parents could control either. It's clear from my stepdad's perspective that he was willing to pay for Amanda's wedding, but her unreasonable demands and rushed relationship made him back out entirely. He believed she should have scaled down her expectations or contributed financially herself, but she stuck to her extravagant demands, expecting our parents to foot the bill entirely. Given the crazy budget and the short duration of her relationship, our parents weren't comfortable spending such a large sum on her wedding. I don't think it's fair for anyone to blame me for Amanda's current situation, but her friends are. Initially, I tried not to let it bother me, but a week has passed, and I still feel guilty. I know she's in legal trouble, and my stepdad is working to settle the situation with the child's mother. My husband doesn't think I have anything to feel sorry for, but I can't shake the guilt. I feel bad for accepting money from my stepdad for my wedding and for posting about it online. Update: it's been a few days since my last post. I read the comments today and I realize you guys are right. I don't have anything to feel sorry about. Amanda's friends were just trying to support her, but unfortunately, that meant putting me down and making me feel bad about myself. They did a good job of it. I'll give them that. I felt terrible for a while, but then I talked about it with my mom and stepdad. They both said it wasn't my fault. It was Amanda acting crazy and facing the consequences. They told me not to listen to what her friends were saying. It's hard because these were my school friends, and now they've turned against me. But there's nothing I can do because they've picked their side, and it's not mine. Instead of fighting it and trying to explain myself to everyone, I should know I did nothing wrong and move on with my life. Even a few people here accused me of being the favorite child and said my parents failed Amanda. Let me clarify, I didn't give you guys a one-sided story. I included the times when I refused to share my funds with her, which is why she couldn't get married since my mom also refused to contribute. It was selfish of me, but she never tried to be my friend and was always horrible to me growing up, so I didn't see a reason to be nice to her. There were times when I was mean to her too, and our parents would scold both of us for it. If I was their favorite, they wouldn't have scolded me. As for the wedding, I already explained how I got the money and why she didn't get the same treatment. She wanted a big wedding without spending her own money. She should be grateful our parents can still support her financially, and her dad has always tried to be there for her. She has a job, but she doesn't take it seriously, which is why she's stuck in the same position. But her lifestyle is such that she struggles with her income, refuses to live modestly, and isn't willing to work hard. So she often borrows money from our parents. They already help her a lot, but she still expected them to spend extra on her extravagant wedding last year. When they didn't for valid reasons, she acted like the victim. It shows she lacks gratitude. Yet my stepdad is still trying to help her, while her friends act like she's been treated unfairly. I've worked hard to be independent. I studied hard in school and college, and I work hard at my job now. That's why I don't need to rely on my parents for money. It's not my fault she didn't do the same, even though we had the same resources and support. I don't understand why people think I'm the favorite when I'm not. I've earned everything I have, and I won't let others invalidate that by accusing my parents of favoritism. At the end of the day, I know what I did, and I know who my parents are. While Amanda's friends accuse our parents of playing favorites, my stepdad only cares about Amanda's well-being. That says a lot about who's right and who's wrong. It's disappointing that despite all our parents have done for her, Amanda only wants to play the victim and seek sympathy from everyone. It's sickening. Update: the child's mother and my stepdad reached a settlement, agreeing on nearly $25,000 to drop the charges. It's a lot, but I guess to everyone, their child is worth it, and my stepdad is no exception. He offered to pay in installments, but she wanted it all up front, causing some trouble for my stepdad. However, he managed to get it done somehow, and Amanda is now free. Unfortunately, free doesn't mean she's grateful to our parents. My mother told me Amanda hasn't even thanked them yet, which made her furious. It's been a couple of days and Amanda knows what happened but hasn't thanked them. It's disappointing even for her. My mother said my stepdad is trying to hide his feelings about it, but she knows he's hurting deep down. My husband and I are supposed to leave for our honeymoon in 2 days, but we've decided to visit my family one last time before we go. We want to make sure my stepdad is okay. He's a good man and deserves a better daughter than Amanda, which is why I exist. I'll check up on him and make sure he's all right. On the bright side, Amanda's friends have stopped complaining about her parents favoring me. Now that it's all over, they knew they were lying, but that didn't stop them. I wish I had said something to them, but now all the posts are gone, so it's too late. But I know this isn't over yet because Amanda will have something to say eventually. And when she does, her friends will start supporting her again. This time, I won't keep quiet like I did before. I just got married, and I wanted to enjoy the honeymoon phase. Also, I didn't want to pick on her while she was at such a low point. My parents were worried about her too, so I didn't want to add to the drama. But if she says anything about me again, I'll definitely stand up for myself. I'm sure my parents will support me too. Update 2. It's been almost a month since my husband and I returned from our honeymoon. We got back home a couple of days ago, and it's been quite a ride of emotions already. First off, Amanda is no longer part of our family. She publicly announced on social media that she cut ties with us. I didn't see the announcement because I was on my honeymoon and not checking social media or texts unless it was important, which this wasn't. I only found out recently. Honestly, it's a relief for me. My stepdad was initially upset, but he got over it, according to my mother. A few days after I left for my honeymoon, Amanda visited my parents, but instead of thanking them, she had the audacity to ask them to cut ties with me, or she'd stop talking to them. She gave them an ultimatum, saying they had to choose between me and her because she was supposedly tired of me taking everything she deserved. This is just excuses, as I mentioned in my first update. I haven't taken anything from her. She simply doesn't have much of her own, not even common sense. She thinks she can blame me for her failures even when they have nothing to do with me. But our parents weren't going to tolerate that. They told her that if she had to choose, they'd pick me because Amanda was too entitled, spoiled, and selfish. They couldn't deal with her anymore. My mom didn't say much to her because she was afraid she'd explode in frustration. She told Amanda she was ungrateful and didn't want to deal with her nonsense anymore. Amanda didn't care and dismissed my mom because she's not her real mom. Then she turned to her dad. My mom felt insulted and left the room. She only came back when she heard yelling. When she returned, Amanda told her dad to have a good life with his new family and stormed out. She stormed out of the house and slammed the door behind her. Later, my mom found out that Amanda left because my stepdad told her the same things my mom had said. She couldn't handle her dad also choosing me now, so she left. If my parents didn't have a favorite before, they do now. And it's not my fault anymore. Amanda's behavior made me their favorite. She showed she had no respect or love for our parents. If she did, she wouldn't have behaved like she did. She was rude to my mom because she's not Amanda's biological mom. But there's no excuse for being so mean to her own dad. She used him for money for a long time. Now she thinks she has friends to rely on, so she's leaving her dad behind. I wish her the best as long as she stays away from us. She's the worst, and I'm glad she's gone.